Hey, it's John Nemo. Wanted to share a fascinating failure. Right? Failure can be fascinating. Failure can be the greatest teacher there is when it comes to having success in business and life. And I just had a pretty epic failure here on a sales call. And I wanted to hit record here while it was still, fresh in my mind and while the emotions are still running high because there's so many key lessons that really play into LinkedIn lead generation and understanding how to qualify the leads on LinkedIn and then how to actually close the deal. And it really lends to this deeper issue that I see all the time when it comes to any type of lead generation service, advertising service, marketing service. This is certainly a pain point for us as an agency, LinkedIn lead generation agency, Nemo Media Group. We go out, if you don't know, and we find leads for our clients on LinkedIn. And then we hand these qualified, warmed up leads to the client. And at the end of the day, the client still has to close the lead. The client has to make the sale. I don't make the sale for the client. And so what ends up happening, this is the pain point, is if the client can't close the lead or can't make a sale from the lead we provide, it kind of becomes this blame game where the client will say, well, if you ever seen the movie Glengarry Glen Ross or the play that it's based on, there's this great exchange where, Alec Baldwin in the movie is in there with a bunch of sales guys and he's like, you need to close these leads. And one of the sales guys says, the leads are weak. And Alec Baldwin goes, the leads are weak? No, you're weak. Close those leads, So they're fighting with each other. And I always think of that exchange when, you have these issues where, you hire a vendor and they're supposed to generate leads and then you don't close the sale and you're going to go back to the vendor and say, you didn't give me a good enough lead, right? And then the vendor will say, no, that was a great lead. You should have closed it. Your sales process is broken. And so what's been interesting, just a little aside here, is having done LinkedIn lead generation now for over a decade for hundreds and hundreds of clients and seeing them have, such crazy swings of success. Our best client has done probably, well into the mid seven figures in sales from us over like the last couple of years. We've had other clients make approximately zero in sales. And it's like, wait, what happened here? Because we're using the same process. We're getting the same quality of leads. This is a really interesting case study because it's in the same industry. So, in this specific type of consulting niche, our best client has done, again, into the mid seven figures in sales. Other consultants in the exact same niche, exact same style, approach, everything, apples to apples, we've done all the same quality work. They've made zero. So how is this one person doing, mid seven figures in sales from our leads and other people in the exact same industry are doing zero? Well, it really comes down to your ability to close a sale, your ability to make a sale, your ability to take the lead that we give you and actually seal the deal. And what's ironic about this, I will tell you my own experience, the people that brag to me most about how great they are at sales and how I won't be the problem, I can close leads, I'm going to be your best, most successful client of all time, they inevitably are the worst. If someone has to tell you how great they are at closing deals and making sales, that typically means they're super insecure, right? Anyone, this is junior high, but anyone who has to brag and tell you how great they are at something, they're typically not very good at it. Whereas the people who are really good at it, they know it. They don't have to tell you. They don't have to brag. They just show you, right, by closing the deals. And so what's interesting, and I think what's really helpful for me, is being in that chair, doing the exact process myself that our agency does for clients, meaning I start on LinkedIn with my personal profile. I reach out one-on-one to prospects. I offer free content to these prospects. If they say yes, I deliver the content. I follow up with them with one-on-one conversations. If they're interested in learning more, I use a type form to qualify them and get more information. And then if all that checks out, then I book a sales call and I have a call with that prospect where obviously the outcome is to sell them, if it's a good fit, sell them our services, LinkedIn lead generation services. So literally I do the exact process that we do for clients. And it's really been instructive for me because over the years, seeing where some clients have really, soared and others have struggled, and how so much of it comes down to the client's sales process. Because again, all things being equal, and we can study this with our agency because we're doing it in the exact same niche for multiple people selling the same service. It's like, a car mechanic and saying, hey, we're going to work with 10 different car mechanics. They all repair Hondas, right? And we're going to get leads Honda owners that need their cars fixed, how many of you guys can close the deal and get them in your shop, and how many can't, right? Like, why is Joe over here getting all the cars in and, Sally or Bill is not, right? So anyway, what's interesting is, and the fascinating failure that happened for me today really comes down to understanding this timeless truth. And that is, your ability to handle people is what makes you rich. That I first read that in Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, written in 1936. Literally based my whole business off of that book. When I quit my safe six-figure day job back in 2012, where I had one client, enough money for 30 days, and one out on my own, I had this plan to use LinkedIn to generate leads. And I wanted to build my business based off of what I had read in How to Win Friends and Influence People, because it just so resonated. And one of the great lines in that book was, again, your ability to handle people is what makes you rich. And so the example of this, and where it comes into now, 21st century AI, everything else, here's some of the practical application that this fascinating failure taught me. So to kind of give you the lay of the land for this sales call, again, I had contacted this client a prospect, not a client, right? I failed, but I had contacted this prospect on LinkedIn for my LinkedIn profile. I had given this person free content specific to their unique niche, demonstrated expertise, showed them how we've helped other people just like them have success, warmed them up. They said they were interested in our Done For You services. I had the person fill out a type form, which has, and again, I cover all this in great detail if you want to know the method to the madness of how we qualify leads and all the unique questions I ask and how I build these type forms and intake forms to really, hyper qualify people before I talk live. All of that is in my book, LinkedIn Riches, which you can get a free copy digitally at linkedinriches.com. Just go to the free tab and you can get the book for free, the audio book, the PDF, or the Kindle. So all that's in there. I won't go into great detail of every question in the type form. Anyway, this prospect filled that out. They looked like a good fit, so we had a live call. And we had our first call, and what happened was I was thrown off a little bit because my personality, if you're a big fan of like the DISC personality assessments, I'm very much the extroverted, like go with your gut, emotional, fast, like super excitable. And this person was, I guess what's called a high C. So super analytical and super process oriented. And I want spreadsheets and I want to run data sets and I want to run numbers and everything's very cautious and analytical. And so that's fine, right? So like we worked through that on the call. And basically we got to the end of the call and, the person was like, I'm really interested. However, I have these concerns. And I said, okay, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we have a second call and let's set a date? And then we can either, get to a yes or no. And between today and that call, I will put together some data and some analytical things, which I did and sent to the person. So I thought, okay, I'm treating this person the right way as far as giving them more data and things to, they can run through spreadsheets and, all that stuff. And so anyway, the time goes by between the first call and the second call. And I hop on the second call and I'm totally caught off guard because I come into the call thinking, okay, well, we're going to, the way I framed it last time, I was like, hey, the second call is either, hey, we're moving forward, like, let's get going. And here's the logistics and how to get you started. Or, hey, you know what? I kept the call, but I don't want to move forward. Thanks anyway. I'm not moving forward for these reasons, and off we go. And typically, I would think, I also am like, well, you wouldn't keep a second call with me unless you kind of wanted to move forward. Like, if you knew in your heart of hearts you were a no, like, why would you keep the call, right? Like, and I've had people show up for a second call and be like, yeah, I don't want to move forward. And I'm like, well, why didn't you just email me? Like, you're wasting your own time, saving your calendar space and blocking time and everything. Anywho, I get on the call thinking it's, we're ready. And I basically am like, hey, it's great to see you. A little bit of small talk. You're ready to move forward. I know I sent you all the data and analytical things that you asked for. And the person was like, I haven't had any time to look at it. I've been really busy. And that just threw me because I was like, oh, okay. And this is where the practical part comes in. So I want to give you a little bit of insight into how I trained myself in sales. I've been doing sales since 2012 by myself, right? And I've done well into 7, almost 8 figures in sales by myself. So I'm good at it, right? Like I've built a 7-figure business from scratch with sales, and I've done career-wise almost 8 figures in sales by myself. So I know what I'm doing, right? I like to think, but obviously sales, you can always get better. You can always evolve. You can always learn. And what I've learned now, what's really cool is obviously all my sales calls are done via video, right? So like Zoom or Google Meet. What I do, just to give you a little bit of insight into the practical piece and how you can use this and how this fascinating failure happened, was I record all the sales calls on video and it automatically creates a transcript. I take the transcripts, I feed them into AI, and in this case I use ChatGPT, and I tell it, hey, act as my sales coach. And what I do is I create a new project in ChatGPT. I feed it and educate it, because AI needs context. It needs to know, what are you selling? Who's your company? What are your price points? What are your services? So I fed AI, ChatGPT. I made a project and I said, hey, basically, here's my life story. Here's everything you need to know about Nemo Media Group, the services we provide. Here's, all our stories. Here's the books I've written. Here's all our client testimonials. Here's our, everything, contracts, whatever. And then basically, over the last 10 years, here's all the most common objections and how I deal with them and how I talk about A, B, C, and D, so that you have the lay of the land in terms of who is John Nemo and what's he selling and what are the price points and who's he targeting and who's the audience and what's the service and what are the common objections. So anyway, I educated AI. Now what I do to build on that is every time I have a sales call, I feed it the transcript. So it takes, immediately, I use a tool called Fathom. There's a million tools, but I use a tool called Fathom, Fathom. And it plugs into Google Meet or Zoom, and it shows up as an attendee, and it records it and takes notes, and it has a great instant transcript. And so what I'll do is I'll feed the AI the transcript as soon as the sales call is done, and I'll say a prompt like, act as my sales coach, tell me what I could have done better, tell me what I did really well, show me areas where, I could have improved something, and it'll always coach me up. It'll say, hey, you gave up your leverage here, or you lost control of the way you wanted to frame things there, or this opportunity that came up when the person said that, you could have used the analogy of, well, you're comparing apples to oranges and here's why we're different. So it's a really good coach. So I would suggest, if you do any sort of sales for your business, use it. Use AI as your coach. Put in the transcripts of the calls, let it read it. And again, give it the context of what you're selling and what you do if you want better results, like more personalized, results. Because by now the AI knows me and it knows my personality and my style. So where this leads to the really, interesting failure that happened just now is, I had the second call and it just completely went off the rails right away, because the person was like, well, I haven't had time to look at it. I'm really, really busy. And I was like, oh, because you're kind of stumbling in the moment and you're like, well, what? Wait a minute, I'm totally losing it, right? And so afterward, I was able to put in the whole transcript and kind of figure out, okay, what's going on here? And obviously, I stumbled a little bit because I was caught off guard, and I was like, okay. And so I reverted to, well, what do I know? What I've learned in sales is something that I learned from Chris Voss, a book called Never Split the Difference, where he talks about labeling and mirroring, right? So mirroring meaning repeat back what you're hearing from the person, and then labeling meaning use a phrase like it sounds like, or it seems like, or it feels like. And what this person started with was, I've been so busy, I haven't had time to look at it. And then they just kind of stared at me. So I was like, they didn't say and I don't want to move forward, but I still want to move forward. They just stared at me. I've been too busy. And I'm like, in my head, in that moment, I'm going, well, why did you keep this call? It's been a couple of weeks. Could you have not emailed me to say, I haven't had time to look at this? I'm not ready to have another call. I'm not ready to make a decision. We made it clear, I certainly did, let's have another call and it's time to move forward. Now, here's where the fascinating failure comes in. When I was prepping for this call, I went through my notes from call number one and I asked AI, hey, can you summarize what we talked about a couple weeks ago? Because I forgot, to some degree, who is this person? Tell me about their services and products. Tell me what we talked about on the call. Where did we leave things? What did I offer? What were the person's biggest hangups or objections? What I failed to do, and this is where the fascinating lesson comes in, is I forgot this key phrase of, your ability to handle people makes you rich. At the end of the day, sales always, always, always still comes down to emotions and how people feel about the purchase, and how people don't make rational decisions when they're buying something. They don't sit there, as much as they want to present themselves as logic and fact-based and numbers-based. You and I buy because we want to feel a certain way. We want to feel excited that we're going to solve a problem. We want to feel relief from this pain that is bothering us. We want to feel excitement that we are trying something new. We want to feel pride that we can brag to our friends that we bought this expensive car and show it off. We want to feel, relief that we're finally going to get a solution to ABC. That's why we buy. That's why we pull out our wallet. And so what I failed to do was when I was prepping for this second call, I forgot to ask the AI, or I didn't think to ask the AI. And remind me again, what's this personality? What's this person's MO? Like, what's their disc profile, right? Those things. Because one of the things I've learned on the front end that I put into my Typeform is disc-based questions, meaning the way that you answer these multiple choice questions is almost like a little mini personality test, so that the AI can read your questions and prep me for the call and say, hey, based on the way this person answered your multiple choice questions prior to the sales call, they fit in as an analytical high C on the DISC spectrum. And some people use enneagrams and all these other, whatever it is. I just use DISC based because I sort of know what that is. But anyway, I didn't do that for the second call. I didn't say, now remind me, where do they fit on the DISC profile? What type of personality are they? I don't want to get caught off guard. And what happened is the following. So again, why in my mind, I'm going, why didn't this person just cancel the call or say no over email, or I'm not ready over email? Because I was offended, like, oh, you're wasting my time, and more importantly, you're wasting your own time. And the AI was able to say, well, knucklehead, Nemo, if you would have asked me, I could have told you this person is a high C analytical person on DISC. And it said, I wasn't, after this call went off the rails, the second call just now, this is what ChatGPT told me. It says, I said, I was caught off guard. And the AI writes back, it says, well, I wasn't surprised. It's like, well, where were you? I don't have you plugged into my mind. And it said, the AI said, I see this pattern a lot with analytical high C DISC level prospects. It said they will book a second call with you to avoid an uncomfortable no via email. Telling you no in writing feels more confrontational and final for that high C DISC type person. And I'm thinking, oh, I never even thought of that. I would just say no because, well, I'm not a high C. I'm not the analytical person. I would just be like emotionally like, no, I'm not going to do it and move on and save my time. And then it says this also a high C. They want to leave the door cracked because they might want to circle back later if the other things are looking at flop. And the high C will rationalize keeping the second call with you, John, as information gathering rather than decision making. And it said the fact that this person started the call with, I've been too busy to look, even though it's been multiple weeks and I only sent one email to look at. They said the fact that this person started with, I've been too busy to look, is a shield. It's the prospect, it said, is trying to reframe and reset my expectations for a no decision outcome. Like, we're not going to move forward. This is no longer a yes or no call. And also the prospect wants to soften the conversation and buy time without having to outright reject me. So that's where, like, I didn't know any of this, right? So then I say to the AI, hey man, that would have been nice to know. Prior to the call, I said, and no BS here, ChatGPT, if I would have said to you, basically, if I would have said to you, help me prep for the personality, would you have caught this or warned me? And it said 100%. It said, if you had asked me for a DISC-based prep before this call, I would have flagged that because this person is a high C analytical buyer, and because of the language they use and the pace they used on the first call, because I can look at the I knew it said this person was already showing some of those tells. And this is the fascinating failure for me for next time, right? Because there will be a next time. That's the great thing about lead generation and sales. There's always another opportunity. It said what I would have told you before the call, because this person is a high C, expect a stall tactic, not an immediate decision. Right, I came in thinking, well, we left it as yes or no. Like, if he kept the call, the person, we're probably a yes. Like, why else would you show up? And it says, no. High C's rarely make a fast yes on anything they view as high stakes. And this person did say this feels like a big investment. It's high stakes for them, right? So, and again, it was priced higher than what they've spent previously on marketing. So the AI was like, I would have said, go in assuming the person's going to try to frame this right away as a fact-finding call rather than decision day. Unless you proactively attack that up front and call it the elephant in the room. And then it said, and reminder, this person, because they're a high C on the disc profile, they kept the second call to avoid a hard rejection. It's conflict avoidance. It's a desire to keep options open. And they will often start with, I've been really busy, so they can reframe me into non-closing mode, soften the conversation, and make it just more fact-finding, right? And he said, if you're a high C, your brain is wired for risk minimization, right? Their emotional trigger is fear of making the wrong decision. And I identified that as we went through the second call. It was very clear to me, and I started doing the Chris Voss, where I said, well, it sounds like, because again, I was really confused because I was looking at the logic of the call. I didn't take in the person and the personality. On its surface, this person said to me, and so I circled back to the pain. I said, well, on our last call a couple weeks ago, you said on a scale of 1 to 10 that your urgency level to get new clients from LinkedIn is a 9. Meaning my hair's on fire, I need clients yesterday. I said, is that still accurate? Yes, absolutely. But I've been so busy, I haven't had time to think about it. I said, okay, I'm really confused because if it's so urgent, then I said, and this is the Chris Voss without attacking their ego, well, it sounds like this isn't a top priority. It sounds like there's other things that you feel are a higher priority. And so I was trying to label the behavior to be like, well, wait a minute, you're basically telling me you have a pounding headache. I sell Advil, but you don't want any? Like, because you're too busy to take it and pay for it? Like, what's going on? And so I was totally confused. And this is where the AI is saying, no. This is the person has fear of making the wrong decision. They want to over-research, over-compare, and they want to try to get the price down. And that was the other direction this second call went was, as I mentioned before, we're looking at lots of options, and there's option A, B, and C, and these are all cheaper than what you provide. And I was like, yeah, but those aren't, you're comparing apples to oranges. Like, you're literally not comparing the same service. It's like saying I'm comparing I don't even know of a good analogy. Like, I'm comparing having my car washed to, going to the Bahamas, like on vacation for a week. Like, it's not even the same thing. Like, but you could tell they were doing their personality stuff, right? So all of that to say, like, oh, if I would have known that, because then I kept circling back to the logic of it and going, well, wait a minute, your urgency is a 9 out of 10. So, and then I tried to role play. Okay, well, what if I brought you 3 really qualified leads next week? What would you do? Because you're saying you're too busy to do anything. Well, obviously, I'd make time and talk to them. I mean, I have to sell, but I have all these other things. And I was like, well, it doesn't make any sense. Well, I don't have time. And I'm like, then I'm trying to attack the logic and go, but all I need from you is 1 hour of your time to set everything up, and then it's full done for you service. You don't have to do anything other than talk to the leads. And they're just like, again, spun back into how busy they are and everything. And that's where if I had known the personality, I could have said, oh, the real objection is always deeper, right? The real objection is they don't want to make a fast decision. They're afraid of making the wrong decision, especially because it feels like high stakes. So they're going to stall and over research. And the reason they took this second call and didn't cancel it or email me is they don't like the confrontation and it feels too final and they want to keep the door open. And so obviously we ended without a sale, and I just kind of basically said how I feel, which is just, hey, listen, like, if it's not a heck yes, I'm never going to like strong arm somebody and demand you move forward or negotiate myself into the ground just begging you to work with me, because I'm not in a position where I need to do that. And also anyone who negotiates on price, those are the worst clients of all time, right? You just get terrible outcomes. If people, if you take on the type of clients who are never happy until your service is free, then don't expect to have great clients, right? So anyway, all that to say, it was a disappointing outcome, but I'm really glad I've matured enough as a human being and as a business owner to say, well, what's the lesson, right? Failure can be fascinating if you can detach yourself emotionally from the outcome. And if you can say, well, what can I learn for next time? So you better believe prior to my next sales call, I'm going to ask ChatGPT, give me the disc profile analysis of this person, look at their form. If we've had previous conversations, look at these transcripts, look for cues in how they talk and phrases and words or how they would pause. Because apparently, unknown to me, because I'm not a high C, the way that this person talked to me on the call was classic high C behavior. But it threw me because I was like, you're not finishing your sentence. You're not saying the next thing. You're just like stopping and staring at me. And I'm like tap dancing to try to figure out, well, does that mean you want to move forward or what's going on? So all that to say, man, your ability to handle people makes you rich. If you cannot close sales, you're going to have a really difficult time feeding your family, right? Zig Ziglar said shy salespeople have skinny kids, right? You've got to figure out how to get in there and engage. But what's really fascinating, what's really helpful for you and I here today with AI is the ability to have that expertise at your fingertips. If you're willing to be humble and ask for feedback, and you can do it basically without having to hire a sales coach and pay a bunch of money and wait for the person to watch your call or read transcripts. You can just get it, instantaneously, immediately with AI, which of course has all the sales tactics from around the world fed into it and all the sales analysis. And you can give it context of your own situation, your business, your services, your products, your common objections, so it can really get to know you. So all that said, I hope you found that helpful. There's so many good lessons here with LinkedIn lead generation and lead qualifying and sales closing. Feel free, if you haven't already, to grab a copy of my book, LinkedIn Rich, as I go much more in depth in there about sales and different ideas and strategies. And obviously, if you're not already, start using AI to help. With all that said, thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you soon on another episode.